Hey, Defying Gravity Volleyball family, it's Coach T, and I'm back with another YouTube video. In today's YouTube video, it's going to be a lengthy one. I'm going over all 6 rotations of the 6-2 volleyball rotation. I'm going to talk about rotation positions, where you're going for serve receive, explain the definition very quickly, but if you want way more in-depth of a definition, description, pros and cons of running this rotation, then definitely check out my previous video. But if you're really just here to learn about rotations 1 through 6 for serve receive of the 6-2 rotation, then you're at the perfect spot. So, lot to talk about. Let's hop right into it then. I'll very briefly define the 6-2 rotation. It has 6 hitters and 2 setters. Those 2 setters only set when they're in the back row. So that means when the other setters in the front row, we always have them as a hitting option. Big disclaimer, the 6-2 rotation is vastly different from the 4-2 rotation, because in the 4-2 rotation, you have 4 hitters and 2 setters, with those 2 setters only setting when they're in the front row. So you only ever have 2 hitting options in the front row. All right, let's start this video because it's going to take a while. So we're going to start in serve receive rotation 1 for our 6-2 rotation. And for this one, our setter is in position 1 and setter 1 is setting. Especially starting your lineup, if you have one of your setters out of the 2 that is really good at setting but also really good offensively, like they could very well be a really good right side hitter or an outside hitter, they're great on blocking and hitting in the front row, then you actually would probably want to start them in setter 2, because setter 2 would be playing right side for 3 positions since they're starting in the front row, while setter 1 is starting in the first 3 back row positions, meaning they're setting for the first 3 positions. But let's start. I'll stop yapping. Let's start. So let's go into our rotation positions. Technically, where are they in rotation position? And then we'll go into our serve receive. Setter 1 is in position 1, as we just learned. OH1 is in position 2, MB1 is in position 3, your right side or your setter 2, whoever you chose to start in your lineup for front row, is in position 4, your OH2 or your DS that you started in is in position 5, and your libero is in position 6 rotationally. Now that we know our rotation positions, we can move into serve receive. Your setter is obviously in a vulnerable spot. So all we do is take our OH1 and we pull them back to pass on defense. You just have to make sure as an OH1 you're staying in front of setter 1, but you are covering them. So for offense, your right side or your setter 2 that you have in can hit outside for 1, and your OH1, who is pulled back in the back row to cover your setter to pass, can hit right side for 1. Moving into serve receive rotation 2, our setter is in 6, and setter 1 is still setting right now. Here are our rotation positions. So we just learned setter 1 is in position 6, our OH1 or DS is in position 1, our MB1 is in position 2, our right side or setter 2 is in position 3, our OH2 is in position 4, and our libero is in 5. So as you can see from my little cropped Etsy guide, we have a few more people moving than rotation 1 here. So let's start with defense. So for defense, you can notice that our OH2 is pulling back row to pass. They're staying closer to position 5, which means our libero is shifting to make some room for them, so they're shifting to position 6. That seamlessly moves us into our offensive notes because our setter 1 was technically rotationally in position 6, and we just moved our libero there. And we know we don't want our setter 1 to set the ball right. So we just pull up our setter 1 to the front row, making sure that they stay behind the right side or setter 2. And I didn't mention this on my blog post, but there are a few more offensive options that you can consider as a coach, and you can honestly notice these things as a coach the more you do it. Like, oh, I guess I could do this technically as an offensive option or defense. But as you can see, our MB1 is closer to the right side hitting position, so you could have your MB1 hit right side for 1, and you could have your right side hit middle for 1, and your OH2 will obviously pull up to hit outside as well. Or you could keep it a lot simpler. You could have your MB1 just run and transition immediately to middle, and your right side immediately transitions to right side. All right, moving into our next rotation, we're on serve receive, rotation 3, and our setter is in position 5, with setter 1 still setting. This is their last rotation where they're going to be setting. Let's start with our rotation positions for rotation 3. So our setter 1 is in position 5. Our OH1 or DS is in position 6. Our MB2 is in position 4. Our right side or setter 2 is in position 2. And our OH2 is in position 3 with our libero in position 1. Thankfully for serve receive, this is pretty simple. We only have 2 people moving. You're probably starting to notice that the OHs definitely move a lot in the back row. I think it's really important to consider how great of passers your outsides are as a coach. Some coaches maybe don't really care about those things because they can just sub in a DS, but especially with the 6-2 rotation where you're probably going to be subbing in a right side hitter, at least for one of your 2 setters to add some offensive depth, you're losing a lot of substitution allotment because you only get a certain number every set. So I think it's important to consider having at least one of your outsides not needing to be able to be subbed out by a defensive specialist because they're able to pass. So with that, let's move into defense first because it's pretty simple. As you can see, our OH2 is pulling back from their front row spot, and they're just going to pass in the back row in position 5. As we know, we don't want our setter in the back row for the first contact, so we're simply just pulling our setter 1 to the front row in the middle. Something that's very important for this, so that way we stay in rotation, is that the setter 1 is to the left of the OH1 or DS's body. So you can see I tried to show that as best I could in my small Etsy shop diagram, is that I have the OH1 and DS to the right, and the setter 1 is very much obviously to the left of them. You might think that referees don't notice these things, but 50-50 chance that they are going to call you out on that. I've had referees that are so good at rotations, as they should be, if I'm kind of being honest right now. They should be. They notice those things right away. They're like, you move too quickly in rotation, you cross their body. Or you were crossing their body, so you're out of rotation actually. So you actually have to instill in your athletes why that would call them out of rotation, because technically you're both back row players and you would be out of rotation because you're crossing their body in the front row. That puts you out of rotation. So you really have to instill that in your athletes. Do not be lazy about that. Be very intentional about keeping your body to the left of your OH1 and DS as setter 1 until you hear live contact with the ball from your opponent. And again, you can probably already notice this from me teaching you this in the last rotation, but you have a few offensive options here. You can keep it simple. You can just have MB2 run immediately to transition to 10-foot line to hit in the middle, and OH2 after the first serve receive contact runs immediately to outside to hit for offense. Or you can mix up a little bit. You can have MB2 stay exactly where they are rotationally and hit outside for 1, and have OH2 hit middle for 1. Maybe you guys could run a slide. That would be pretty cool. All right, we're moving into serve receive rotation 4, and this is fun because there's a little mix up because now setter 2 is setting. So setter 2 will be setting for rotations 4, 5, and 6. And as we just learned, setter 1 set for rotations 1, 2, and 3. The beautiful thing about the 6-2 rotation is that you technically only have to teach your athletes 3 different rotations, because rotations 4, 5, and 6 look identical to rotations 1, 2, and 3, except you just have a few different players in there. So you'll notice serve receive rotation 4 is identical to serve receive rotation 1, except OH2 is where OH1 was, and setter 2 is where setter 1 was. If you kept going, you'd see serve receive rotation 5 is identical to serve receive rotation 2, and serve receive rotation 6 is identical to serve receive rotation 3. But anyways, let's get into serve receive rotation 4. So setter 2 is now setting, and setter 2 is in position 1. So remember that. That's something that you might mix up. You might be like, no, my setter's actually in serve receive rotation 4 now. No, because our setters only set when they're in the back row. OH2 is in position 2, MB2 is in position 3, your right side or your setter 1 is in position 4, your OH1 or DS is in position 5, and your libero is in position 6. So for offense, I really suggest that you follow something that's a lot simpler, honestly, because right side or your setter 1 is already in the outside position. You might as well just have them hit outside for 1. You don't have to do that if you really think it's better for your team to just have them stack middle 2 and right side 1, then they just immediately run. But outside's already there, you know what I mean? They're already right. They're already pulled back pretty deep to cover the setter 2, running all the way across the court to hopefully still transition and then hit in the outside. I think it's a little hard, but to each their own. For defense, you already know the outside 2 is simply pulling back to pass. They're staying in front of setter 2 to stay in rotation position, and they're just making sure they're covering their body so they ideally don't get that first pass. Next, we're going to talk about serve receive rotation 5. our setter is in position 6, and setter 2 is still setting right now. So rotation positions. Setter 2, as we know, is setting. They're in position 6. OH1 is in position 4. MB2 is in 2. Our right side or setter 1 is in position 3. Our OH2 or DS is in position 1. And our libero is in position 5. Let's first start with our setter. Of course, we know we don't want our setter to get the first ball, so we simply just have setter 2 pull up to the front row, making sure that they're staying behind the right side, or setter 1 to make sure they're staying in rotation position. And I take my MB2 and I just pull them to the 10-foot line. Our defense, as we see, since we moved our setter out of the passing lineup, we want to fill that gap, so I'm just simply pulling my OH1 back to pass. That makes me shift my libero to the position 6 spot, so that way we can make room for that. And that's that. 3 people are simply moving. If you also move the middle, then 4 people are moving. All right, we're on our last rotation. Serve, receive, rotation 6. Our setter is in position 5. And this is where a lot of mix-ups happen as well. Our setter 2 is still setting for this last 6 rotation, and our MB1 and libero are back in. I'm sure this is known. I don't know if I mentioned this in the earlier rotations, but libero can only serve for one possession. You don't have to make them serve. You could have both middles serve for them if you have phenomenal serving middles, but it does add some inconsistency once they actually step on the court. Usually hitters aim for them after they serve. So I usually think it's good if you have a libero that's a strong server to serve for one of those possessions. So if that's MB1's service, then that's that. If that's MB2 service, then that can be that as well. Just make sure you are never letting your libero serve for 2 possessions or 2 players, because that would keep you very much so out of rotation. And the scores table, if they're doing their job, they're going to call you out of rotation. You'll lose your point probably. That being said, let's get into rotation positions. So our setter 2, as we know, this is the last rotation they're setting in. They're in position 5. Our OH1 is in position 3. Our MB1 is in position 4. Our right side or setter 1 is in position 5. Our OH2 or DS is in position 6, and our libero is in position 1. They either just served, or MB2, they did their service and they just lost it. Now we're on serve receive, so the libero switched out with the libero, putting the libero in position 1. So as we can see on my little guide, we never want our setter to be vulnerable in the first pass, so we pull our setter 2 to the front row, making sure that they're staying to the left of OH2 or the DS, identical to rotation 3. Since we pulled OH1 back to pass, they're just going to pull back to position 5 spot. Again, as we learned earlier, you have a few options here offensively. You could have MB1 hit outside for 1 and have OH1 hit middle for 1. You can run a few different plays with this, or you can try to keep it, I guess, a little bit simpler for you. All right, I just went over all 6 rotations of the 6-2 volleyball rotation. Please check out my Etsy shop where I have downloadable guides. I cropped the guides here in my video. I mean, to each their own if you just screenshot them and use that way. But on my Etsy shop, it has way more detail. I have rotation positions. I have the serve receive guide like you guys saw today. And I also have details at the bottom. Very easy printable pages. Also included in the purchase on my Etsy shop for the 6-2 guide is an in-game cheat sheet. Very quick, easy to see where people are rotationally for serve receive. And it's just a beautiful guide to have as a coach, something to quick reference. It's something that I made myself, that after 8 years of coaching, I found the best way to help myself teach rotations and remember them in a fast-paced game. So it's just a way for me to help aspiring or coaches up and coming back to the sport. I want to make your job a little easier. Don't forget to also check out my 5-1 Etsy shop template. It has the same exact ideology, rotation position, serve receive positions, detailed notes, in-game cheat sheet, all that just for the 5-1 rotation. And lastly, make sure you check out my TikTok and Instagram. I post on them daily, if not weekly. I just hit 8,000 TikTok followers and I just hit 4,000 Instagram followers, so it's really exciting. And I'm really close to hitting 400 YouTube subscribers. I started my YouTube channel many months after I started my website, so I wasn't sure if it would follow the trajectory that I've been going on for the past year and a half with my business, defyinggravityvolleyball.com. So I'm really thankful that YouTube, my favorite app, is doing great, and I appreciate all 400 of you. I think that's so crazy, and I'm very thankful. So yeah. Thanks. I hope you guys can comment if you have any other things you want to learn about. I have a whole lineup of YouTube videos and blog posts that I'm going to be doing, Etsy shop guides that I'm going to make for you guys. So definitely still comment down below. I can add something in if it seems more needed by you guys, but I have a whole lineup of stuff coming soon, so stay tuned. The fall season is fastly approaching. It's only happening in a few months. And make sure you like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. It lets me know what you guys like so I can keep it going. So I hope this helps you guys out, and you better be in the next video so we can keep yapping together. Okay. All right. Okay. Bye.